Hi, Sam from Guitar Village here. Recently we did a restring video on an electric guitar, and due to the popularity of that and a few comments asking us to, we're doing how to restring your acoustic guitar. Let's get started. Okay, so before we get started with the restring, let's look at some of the tools we've got for the job. Now, not all of these tools are essential to have, but some of them are. So let's start off with the first one. We have peg winder. I would say this is semi-essential because it also works as a little tool to lift the bridge pins up. A guitar tuner, I would say this is pretty much essential. Some guitar polish. We've got some lemon oil here. In this case, this is a Taylor one we're going to use on a Martin. I'm sure both companies will love that. String cutters, these are great just to trim off any of the excess. Got a little bridge pin puller here if we don't want to use our traditional string winder one. Truss rod key, we're not going to be adjusting the truss rod, but I'm going to show you what that's for in a little bit. Polish cloth for a little bit of maintenance. We have a fresh set of strings. These are definitely crucial. You're not going to get very far without a spare set of these. And some toilet paper. I'll show you what that's for in a minute as well. By now we've been through the tool list, so you know kind of what you're going to need to do this job. Let's start removing the old strings. So take the peg winder. I'm going to start with the low E in this case, and you want to turn the tuning key clockwise. So just as you unwind this, you'll start to feel the string gets a lot slacker. I tend to pull on them a little bit just to help them straighten out so they're a bit easier to take off. And in this case, they've done what's called a luthier's knot. So the string's been pulled under itself once it's gone round the tuner and then clipped off, so it helps kind of lock the string in place. Just be careful when you take them out like this because they can be a little bit springy and they do like to catch on things. Okay, so there's the old string taken off the tuning post. Now, like I said, you can use the peg winder to take the string off like that. To remove the peg. Or you can use this little tool that we've got. This literally just sits under there and just levers it out. And then I use the saddle there just to help create some angle. Now, you pull this pin out and then you'll see that the ball end of the string is housed underneath there. Okay, let's do this again 5 more times. We've got the old strings removed now, so it's time to do a little bit of maintenance on the guitar. First up, we're going to give it a bit of a clean with our polish. I tend to prefer just kind of misting this over the guitar. So you don't want loads of it on there, just a little bit, just enough to clear off fingerprints and dust and grime. And then as you go around the guitar, try and keep the motions as circular as possible. Spending a little bit more time just where your arm rests. You do tend to find that, because your arm rests there, sweat and things like that, can just make the guitar, just a little bit sticky around there. If you've still got a little bit of polish on the cloth, you can feel it there, just go over the headstock just to dust it a bit. You don't tend to find too much in the way of fingerprints and things. It's also worth giving each tuner a little wipe as well. As you use them a lot to tune the guitar, you tend to get greases and things off your hands onto there, and that can corrode metals, especially if you've got gold hardware, over time. Okay, next up we're going to take our fretboard conditioner and give that a little bit of a clean. So when you do this, you only want to put a little drop or so on a cloth. Just let it soak in for just a sec. You can even fold the cloth over to help that. And then just go up and down the length of the fingerboard. Try not to get any on the finish because it can sometimes mark the finish. And then if you want to go lengthways first, just to kind of spread it around as much as possible. You don't want to get big build-ups of lemon oil if you can help it. One, it takes a while to soak in, and two, it's probably too much for the fingerboard. I tend to find that doing this, you go up and down the fingerboard and then I go up and down each fret to try and get into the gaps. Some people like to use, something pointy to get right into the frets. I just tend to use my fingernail a little bit. Okay, so there's half of it done. Let's do a little bit more. So same method, just get a little bit on the cloth. Just a drop or so, that's usually enough. And then just go up and down the rest of the fingerboard. This also helps just to give it a bit of a dust off as well on the fingerboard because you're not going to be using polishes on this. It's also worth mentioning actually, if you have a maple fingerboard, you don't want to be lemon oiling it. It's not designed for that. So generally just ebony and rosewood is good just to put I find ebony you don't need much oil at all. Sometimes if you've got an older piece of rosewood, it's really good to get a little bit more on there just if it's really dried out because that can crack. Brilliant. So it looks like we've got our board oiled up nicely. Now on to the next step. So if the board is quite dry, it's worth leaving this for a bit longer. But in this case, this looks pretty good anyway. So we're going to take our toilet paper and just go across each fret and just remove any excess lemon oil so it doesn't leave it all sticky. This evens it out quite nicely as well. Okay, so that's the guitar cleaned and the fretboard oiled. Next up, let's have a look at getting the new strings on. Right, I think it's about time now to string up the guitar, so we're going to get a brand new set of strings. As this is a Martin Eric Clapton signature, we're going to go for a set of these Martin Authentic Lifespan strings. These are really good actually. If you've not tried them before, give them a go. They've got a really nice tone to them and they last a lot longer. And the packets are really hard to open too. Okay, so let's get this pack opened up. Should have 6 strings inside. They're usually individually wrapped in Martin ones. Okay, so we've got our strings here. Let's start with the lower E string, the 6th string. That is the chunkiest string. So here we have our new string ready to go on. Now, before you put it right in here, where the old ball end came out of, something I like to do is just take your truss rod key, a pen, screwdriver, whatever, and just bend the string around it. Now what this will help it do is lock into place better. So got that right on there. So now we have a little curve in there. When you put the string in, you're going to put the bridge pin in afterwards. And what's meant to happen is the string doesn't sit up against this. It doesn't sit underneath like that. So if it does, it's just going to pop out. You need the ball end of the string to sit right around here so that when it goes in there, it sits nicely in that channel. That's this little line that runs down here. So what will happen is you put the string in, put the bridge pin in afterwards and just kind of gently feed it through until you feel it just click into place like that. And then the bridge pin should move independently of the string itself. So the string should be locked in place. And what it's doing is that ball end is sitting against the bridge plate like that. Okay, now we've got our string in place nicely. You can also check this. If you've got a little mirror, you can look underneath here and just see where the bridge plate is. And that will do the job absolutely fine. Okay, so let's head on up to the headstock and put the new string on. Now, I'm not going to do a luthier's knot on this. I find with, the thicker acoustic guitar strings, they're pretty grippy. They've got some real force there and they tend to just want to stay wherever you put them. So I pulled the string all the way through. It's going through the tuning post and I've got that lined up straight with the headstock and the neck. I'm going to count about 2 fingers worth of slack for these ones. And I'm just going to pull it back through. So you've got about this much slack. Oh, there we go, dropped it. This much slack on there. And then I'm going to put a bend this way and a bend this way. And that's going to help keep it in place. Okay, we're ready to wind this up. Now, as you wind it, don't go too fast if this is your first time restringing your guitar. And as you wind this up, you just want each wind to go below the last one, so it makes them look nice and neat, but also helps it stay in tune really well. Now, if you have a look at this end, once you get near pitch with it, you might find that this pin moves just a little bit up, and if it does, you can just pinch it down a small bit like that. You shouldn't have to push down too hard. Okay, so that's how to install one of the strings. Repeat this another 5 times and you're good to go. Okay, one thing worth mentioning at this point as well is it's worth just trimming the excess off. Now I like to get as close into the post as possible. So right here, it's going to get right in there and just cut it. So it's always good to have a decent set of wire cutters there. Okay, so we have our strings tuned up now and we're ready for the last part of this restringing operation. And that is just to press down the strings at the bridge here. That one lowers the action slightly and keeps it most likely where the old strings were set, because as you palm mute and you play your guitar and dig in, these flatten out just over the bridge. So I'll show you how to do that now. So simply just take your finger and just push down, not too hard, just on the strings right next to the bridge there. And what that will do, when the string goes over the bridge, usually when they're brand new, they'll go up and kind of making an arcing pattern, an arcing shape. In this case, what they'll do is they'll go up and then they'll go straight along towards the headstock. This helps keep them in tune over time because they will do that naturally anyway. Some people like to do it at the nut. It really depends on how high your nut slots are, because if they're pretty low and you start pressing down here, you're going to make the strings buzz. But you can always take it to your local tech for them, or luthier to have a look at to make their own judgment on. So there's our video on how to restring an acoustic guitar. I really enjoyed making this video and showing off some of the techniques I've learned over the years, and I hope you enjoyed learning about them too. We'll be bringing out new videos every Friday, so make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with the latest content. Thanks for watching.